The stars had always been quiet. For 300 years, humanity had sent signals into the darkness, hoping for an answer. When the answer finally came, it arrived with 200 warships. Admiral Yuki Tanaka stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance and watched the alien fleet appear on her screens. The ships were beautiful in a way that made her stomach turn. They were long and silver, curved like blades, and they moved through space as if gravity meant nothing to them. Each one was at least 10 times larger than any human vessel. 212 contacts confirmed, said Lieutenant Chen, his voice shaking slightly. Energy signatures are... Admiral, I have never seen readings like this. Tanaka nodded slowly. She had expected something like this. Humanity was young. They had only discovered faster-than-light travel 50 years ago, and even that was slow and clumsy. Their ships ran on fusion engines that took weeks to cross between planets. These aliens, whoever they were, had clearly been traveling the stars for a very long time. "Open a channel," she said. "Let them know we come in peace." The response came within minutes. A face appeared on the main screen. The alien was tall and thin, with pale blue skin and eyes that had no pupils. He wore a uniform covered in golden symbols, and he looked at the human bridge crew the way a man might look at insects. "I am Ambassador Cathvolume of the Varethian Empire," the alien said. His voice was translated by the computer, but the contempt needed no translation. "Your species has been discovered in a region of space marked for imperial expansion. You have one of your planetary rotations to surrender all territory and submit to Varethian rule. Failure to comply will result in complete destruction." The bridge went silent. Tanaka could feel the fear in her crew. 35 ships. That was all humanity had. 35 old, slow, ugly ships against 200 silver blades. "Ambassador," Tanaka said calmly, "we would like to discuss terms. May we meet aboard your vessel?" Kethvol's thin lips curved into something like a smile. "You may. I find your bravery amusing. Perhaps your species will make acceptable servants after all." The transmission ended. 3 hours later, Admiral Tanaka stood in a shuttle bay that was larger than most human space stations. The Varethian flagship was called the Eternal Throne, and everything about it was designed to make visitors feel small. The walls were covered in artwork showing Varethian victories. The floors were polished so perfectly that Tanaka could see her own reflection looking back at her .keth single quotes volume, waited for her with a group of officers. They were all tall, all perfect, all looking at her with the same expression of mild disgust. "So this is a human," one of the officers said. "Smaller than I expected. And those clothes? Do they not have proper materials on their world? Their ships are even worse," another officer laughed. "I saw the scans. They still use chemical fuel." "Chemical fuel. My grandmother's generation stopped using that technology 40,000 years ago." Tanaka listened to all of this without changing her expression. She had been a soldier for 30 years. She had learned patience. "Ambassador," she said, "the people of Earth wish to understand your terms. What exactly do you want from us?" Cathvolume waved his hand dismissively. "Everything. Your planet. Your resources. Your labor. The Varethian Empire has ruled this galaxy for 40,000 years. Every species we have encountered has submitted or been destroyed. You are no different. And if we refuse?" The officers laughed again. Cathvolume silenced them with a look. "Then we will burn your world," he said simply. "We will reduce your cities to ash. We will ensure that no trace of your species remains. This is not a negotiation, human. This is a notification. You have already lost. The only question is how much suffering you wish to experience first." Tanaka was quiet for a long moment. She looked around the massive bay, at the advanced technology, at the confident officers, at the ambassador who had already dismissed her entire species as worthless. Then she smiled. It was a small smile, just a slight curve of her lips, but something about it made Kethvol's expression flicker. "Ambassador," she said, "I understand your position. Your empire is old. Your technology is advanced. Your fleet is powerful. And you are right that our ships are primitive by your standards. Then you will submit?" "No." Tanaka's smile did not fade. "We have something we would like to show you first. Something old. A prototype." Kethvolum frowned. "A prototype of what?" "We found it long ago. Before your empire existed, actually. We have kept it hidden because we were not sure we would ever need it. But I think now is the right time." The officers exchanged confused glances. One of them laughed nervously. "This is a trick," Kethvolum said. "You have nothing. Your species is barely out of your caves. Perhaps." Tanaka turned and began walking back toward her shuttle. "But if you are so confident, then you have nothing to fear. We will bring our prototype to the space between your fleet and our world. If it does not impress you, then you can destroy us. But if it does..." She stopped at the shuttle door and looked back over her shoulder. "Well, I suppose we will see." She boarded the shuttle and left. Behind her, Kethvolum stood in silence, trying to understand why a woman facing the destruction of her entire species had looked so completely unafraid. He told himself it was ignorance. Humans were primitive. They did not understand what they faced. He would realize his mistake very soon. The facility had no name. On official records, it did not exist. It was buried deep beneath the surface of Earth's moon, inside a crater that never saw sunlight. Only 12 people in all of human civilization knew what was kept there. Admiral Tanaka took the elevator down alone. The ride lasted 4 minutes. When the doors opened, she stepped into a darkness so complete that she could not see her own hands. "Lights," she said. The lights came on slowly, revealing a cavern carved from lunar rock. It was enormous, large enough to hold a small city. But the cavern was not empty. In the center, resting on a platform of reinforced steel, sat the thing that humanity had hidden from the universe. The ship was black. Not painted black, but black in a way that seemed to swallow light itself. It was roughly the size of a heavy cruiser, but its shape was wrong. There were no straight lines, no obvious engines, no visible weapons. The hull was covered in geometric patterns that seemed to shift when Tanaka looked away from them. Even after all these years, even knowing what she knew, the ship made her uncomfortable. It had been found in 2089, buried beneath the Pacific Ocean in the deepest part of the Mariana Trench. Engineers digging for rare minerals had discovered it by accident. The ship was not damaged. It was not crashed. It had been placed there deliberately, hidden beneath miles of water and stone, waiting. Scientists had spent decades trying to understand it. The hull was made of materials that did not exist anywhere in the solar system. The power source, whatever it was, had been running for 4 billion years without stopping. 4 billion years. That was before life existed on Earth. That was before Earth had formed from dust and gas. The ship was older than the planet it had been buried on. Over 2 centuries, humanity had learned a few things. They had figured out how to activate small parts of the ship. They had reverse-engineered fragments of technology that had changed human civilization forever. But the ship itself remained a mystery. Its central systems were locked behind codes that no human could break, except for one. The ship had an intelligence. Not artificial, not organic, but something else. Something that thought in ways humans could not follow. It had spoken only 3 times in human history. The first time, It had simply said, "Not yet." The second time, it had asked, "Are there enemies?" When told no, it had gone silent again. The third time was today. Tanaka walked across the platform until she stood directly beneath the ship's prow. She reached out and placed her palm against the black hull. The surface was warm, almost alive. "I need to speak to you," she said. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the patterns on the hull began to glow, soft and blue, pulsing like a heartbeat. A voice filled the cavern. It was not coming from speakers. It was simply there, inside her head and outside it at the same time. "You have returned," the voice said. It was neither male nor female. It sounded patient in a way that made Tanaka think of deep time, of stars being born and dying. "Yes, you would not return unless there was need." "Has something changed?" "There are enemies," Tanaka said. "An alien empire. They have come to destroy us." The glow on the hull pulsed faster. The voice spoke again, and this time there was something new in it. Something that sounded almost like interest. "Enemies. How many?" 200 warships. More across the galaxy. They have controlled known space for 40,000 years. A pause. Then the voice made a sound that might have been laughter. 40,000 years. So young. They are not young to us. They are stronger than we are. Faster. More advanced. We cannot fight them with what we have, but you have me." Tanaka nodded slowly. "Yes, we have you, and I am asking for your help." Another pause. The patterns shifted, flowing across the hull like water. "I have waited for a very long time," the voice said. "I was placed here before your world had life. I was placed here to sleep until I was needed. Do you know why I was made? No, I was made to fight. I was made to destroy. My creators are gone now. They have been gone for billions of years. But I remain, and I have been so very bored." The hull began to open. Panels slid apart, revealing an interior that glowed with soft blue light. Tanaka could see shapes inside, consoles and chambers that made no sense to human eyes. "Come inside," the voice said. "Show me these enemies. Show me what has made you afraid. And then I will show you what happens when you wake something that was built to end wars." Tanaka stepped into the light. 30 minutes later, the ship rose from beneath the moon's surface. It moved slowly at first, almost lazily, floating up through rock and dust as if solid matter meant nothing. When it reached the surface, it hung there for a moment, geometric patterns glowing in the darkness. Every sensor in the solar system detected the energy signature at the same moment. Human stations went into automatic alert. Satellites reoriented themselves. And in the Varithian fleet, officers stared at their instruments in confusion. "What is that?" HFY demanded. "What are we seeing?" His science officer shook his head. "I do not know, Ambassador. The power readings they are impossible. No ship that size should have that much energy. Scan it. Identify it. Now." "I am trying, Ambassador. But our systems cannot. The design does not match any known species. It does not match the precursors. It does not match anything in our records." HFY felt a cold sensation he had not experienced in decades. He told himself it was not fear. Varithians did not feel fear, but deep inside, in a place he would never admit existed, a small voice whispered, "What have the humans found?" The black ship moved through space without engines. There was no fire behind it, no glow of thrust, no visible means of movement. It simply went from one place to another as if distance was a suggestion rather than a rule. Admiral Tanaka sat inside what she had come to think of as the command chamber. The walls were alive with light, showing her views of space from angles that should have been impossible. She could see Earth behind her, blue and green and fragile. She could see the Varithian fleet ahead, 200 silver blades arranged in perfect formation. And she could see herself, somehow, from the outside, a tiny figure inside a ship that had been ancient when the first fish crawled onto land. "They are scanning us," the ship said. Its voice was calm, almost amused. "They cannot understand what they are seeing. Their technology is too young. Will they attack? Eventually. They are afraid, but they do not wish to admit it. Fear makes foolish creatures do dangerous things." A communication signal appeared in Tanaka's mind. She did not need to press any buttons. She simply thought about accepting it, and the connection opened. Ambassador Keful's face appeared before her. He was trying to look confident, but Tanaka had learned to read alien expressions during her years as a diplomat. She could see the tension around his eyes, the slight tremble in his jaw. "Human," Kefvolume said. "What is that vessel?" "What is that vessel? Where did you obtain it?" "I told you, Ambassador. It is an old prototype. We found it many years ago." "That is not an answer. Our scientists cannot identify its origin. It does not match any known species in this galaxy. That is because it is not from this galaxy. Or this time, really. It is very old. Much older than your empire." Keful's expression flickered. "You are lying. Nothing that old could still function. And yet here we are." Tanaka spread her hands. "Ambassador, I am offering you a choice. You can take your fleet and leave our system in peace. We have no desire for war. We simply want to be left alone. Go back to your empire. Tell them that Earth is not worth the trouble. Everyone can survive today." For a moment, just a moment, Kefvolume seemed to consider it. Then his face hardened. "No, I will not be frightened by tricks and old machines. You are primitives. You found some alien relic and now you think you can threaten the Varithian Empire?" He laughed, and this time the laugh sounded genuine. "I have commanded fleets for 300 years. I have destroyed civilizations far greater than yours. One ship, no matter how strange, cannot stand against 200 vessels of the Imperial Armada. I would not be so certain." "I am certain." Kefvolume leaned forward. "And I will prove it. When this is over, I will bring your ship back to the throne world as a trophy. Your planet will burn, human. Your species will become a warning to others. This is the price of defiance." The transmission ended. Inside the black ship, the voice spoke again. "He has made his choice." Yes, Tanaka felt tired. She had hoped, foolishly perhaps, that it would not come to this. "Can you defeat them?" "Defeat them?" The voice sounded puzzled, as if she had asked whether water was wet. "I was built to end wars. Not battles, wars. My creators faced enemies that stretched across galaxies. The small fleet before us is not a challenge. It is barely an inconvenience. You sound very confident." "I have earned my confidence. The question is not whether I can destroy them. The question is whether you wish me to." Tanaka closed her eyes. 200 ships. Thousands of Varithian soldiers. They were the enemy, yes. They had come to destroy her world. But they were still living beings with families and hopes and fears. Is there any way to do this without killing all of them? "I can spare some. Enough to carry a message." "Is that what you want?" "Yes, spare as many as you can. But protect Earth. That is the priority." "Understood. I will begin when they fire first. It would not be sporting otherwise." Outside, the Varithian fleet finished its formation. 200 ships arranged in a crescent, their weapons pointing at the small black vessel floating in the space between worlds. On the flagship, Kefvolume gave the order that would doom his armada. "All ships, target the alien vessel. Fire at will. 300 weapon systems activated at once. Plasma lances gathered energy from singularity cores. Kinetic cannons loaded projectiles the size of buildings. Antimatter torpedoes left their tubes in swarms of blue-white light. The combined firepower of the fleet was enough to crack a planet in half. It was the most devastating display of force the galaxy had seen in 10,000 years. Every weapon hit empty space. The black ship was simply not there when they arrived. It had not moved, not dodged, not activated any visible defense. It had just shifted somehow, as if reality itself had decided to look the other way. What happened? HFY screamed. "Where did it go? Find it!" "Ambassador," his tactical officer said, and his voice was very quiet. "It is behind us." HFY turned to the view screen. The black ship hung in space directly behind the flagship, close enough that he could see the patterns on its hull with his own eyes. They were glowing now, bright and blue, pulsing faster and faster. A voice spoke on all frequencies. Every ship in the fleet heard it. Every recording device captured it. It was not a human voice. Finally. And then the killing began. The first ship to die was a destroyer on the outer edge of the formation. One moment it was there, a silver blade 2 kilometers long, carrying 3,000 crew members. The next moment it was light. Not fire, not explosion. Just light, pure and white, that faded into nothing within seconds. No debris remained. No bodies. The ship had simply stopped existing. The fleet had no time to react before the second ship died. Then the third. Then 5 more in the space of a single heartbeat. Ambassador HFY watched in frozen horror as his tactical display became a graveyard. Ship icons were vanishing faster than his mind could process. The black vessel was everywhere and nowhere. It would appear beside a battleship, and the battleship would become light. It would pass through a cruiser formation, and the cruisers would cease to be. There was no pattern. There was no strategy. There was simply death, moving through the fleet like a thought. "Fight back!" HFY screamed. "All weapons, continuous fire." The fleet tried. Thousands of weapons fired in every direction, filling space with enough energy to sterilize a solar system. But the black ship was never where the weapons expected. It slipped between moments, between spaces, existing in places that the laws of physics said were impossible. A heavy cruiser managed to get a targeting lock. For one brief second, its main cannon was pointed directly at the black ship. The gunner fired. The black ship caught the beam. Actually caught it. The energy disappeared into its hull, absorbed like water into sand. Then the ship turned, almost lazily, and the heavy cruiser became another flash of light. On the bridge of the Eternal Throne, officers were screaming. Some were praying to gods that had not answered prayers in millennia. Others were simply running, though there was nowhere to go. The tactical officer had stopped giving reports. He was sitting at his station, staring at his screen, tears running down his blue face. 50 ships remaining, he whispered. 43, 38, Ambassador, they are all dying. Everyone is dying. HFY could not speak. 300 years of command. Hundreds of battles against species across the galaxy. He had never seen anything like this. He had never even imagined anything like this. The black ship was not fighting. Fighting implied effort, resistance, the possibility of defeat. The black ship was simply removing obstacles. It was doing the thing it had been built to do. The thing it had waited 4 billion years to do. And it was doing it with something that looked terribly like Joy Dot inside the ship. Admiral Tanaka watched through displays that showed her everything. She saw the Varithian vessels dissolve. She saw the patterns of energy that had once been living beings. She felt sick. "Stop," she said. "Please. You have proven your point. The fleet is not yet destroyed. Enough of them are. Spare the rest. Spare the flagship." The voice was quiet for a moment. "You are certain?" "They would not spare you." "I know. Do it anyway. Mercy is not weakness. Your species is strange." The voice almost sounded approving. "Very well. I will spare the flagship and those close to it. But there is something I must do first." The black ship stopped moving. It hung in space at the center of a field of light, surrounded by the fading ghosts of 187 warships. The remaining vessels, perhaps a dozen, clustered around the flagship like frightened children. They had stopped firing. They had stopped trying to flee. They simply waited for death, but death did not come. Instead, the black ship moved forward until it was directly in front of Ambassador Kethvol's personal viewing window. He could see it clearly now, every detail of its impossible hull, every shifting pattern. And somehow, impossibly, he felt that it was looking at him. The voice spoke again, but this time it was directed at him alone. "Ambassador Kethvol of the Varithian Empire. You came to this system to destroy a species you considered inferior. You laughed at their technology. You mocked their ships. You promised to burn their world and erase their existence." Kethvol tried to speak, but no words would come. "I am older than your empire by a factor you cannot comprehend. I have destroyed fleets that would make your entire civilization look like children playing with toys. I could unmake your throne world with a thought. I could end your species in the time it takes you to draw a breath. Remember this." The voice paused. The patterns on the hull pulsed slowly, almost peacefully. "The humans did not build me. They do not control me. They asked me to help them, and I agreed, because I was bored and because their enemies were foolish enough to threaten them. But know this, Ambassador. I chose to spare you. I chose mercy. The humans asked for it, and I granted it. This is the gift they have given you today. Do not waste it." A smaller ship detached from the flagship. It was Kethvol's personal shuttle, designed for diplomatic missions. The black ship moved aside, creating a clear path toward the edge of the system. "Go home, little ambassador. Tell your eternal throne what happened here. Tell them that Earth has protectors they cannot imagine. Tell them that the next fleet they send will not receive mercy. There will be no survivors. There will be no witnesses. There will only be silence." The shuttle's engines activated without Kethvol giving any order. He was pulled into the vessel by hands he could not see, strapped into a seat by forces he could not understand. Through the window, he watched the black ship grow smaller as his shuttle fled toward hyperspace. The last thing he saw before the stars, stretched into lines, was the hull of the ancient vessel. Patterns glowing in the darkness. The battle had lasted 11 minutes. 187 ships had been destroyed. The most powerful armada in the galaxy had been reduced to ghosts in light. And somewhere inside the black ship, Admiral Tanaka sat alone and wondered what humanity had truly found in that dark trench so long ago. 6 months passed. The galaxy changed. Ambassador Kethvol reached the Varithian throne world after a journey that felt like a lifetime. He was brought before the Eternal Emperor, a being so old that no one remembered when he had taken power. Kethvol told his story in a voice that kept breaking, kept trembling, kept returning to the memory of ships becoming light. The Emperor listened in silence. When Kethvol finished, the ancient ruler sat still for a very long time. "You are telling me," the Emperor said finally, "that a species we considered primitive, a species that had barely left their own star system, possesses a weapon that destroyed 187 of our warships in 11 minutes. Yes, Divine One. And this weapon is a ship. A single ship. Of unknown origin. It claimed to be 4 billion years old, Divine One. It claimed to predate our empire by..." By a span of time I cannot calculate. The Emperor closed his eyes. When he opened them again, something had changed in his expression. It was not fear, exactly. It was something deeper. It was the look of someone who had just realized that the universe was much larger and much stranger than he had ever imagined. "We will not send another fleet," the Emperor said. "We will send diplomats. We will send gifts. We will treat these humans as equals." The court erupted in shock. Equals? The Varithian Empire had no equals. They had subjects and enemies and corpses. They did not have equals, but the Emperor silenced them with a gesture. "I have ruled for 30,000 years, he said. "I have survived because I know when to fight and when to bow." What Ambassador Kethvolume faced was not a weapon of war. It was a force of nature. We do not declare war on nature. We adapt to it. We will adapt to this. And so the Varithian Empire, for the first time in 40,000 years, sent a message of peace. On Earth, the response was mixed. Some celebrated. The threat was over. The enemy had retreated. Humanity was safe. Others worried. What did it mean that they had only survived because of a machine they did not understand? What did it mean that their protector was older than their sun, built by creatures that had vanished billions of years before humans learned to walk? Admiral Tanaka tried not to think about it. She had a job to do. New aliens were contacting Earth every week now. Word had spread across the galaxy in ways that seemed impossible. The young species from the spiral arm. The humans with their ancient protector. Everyone wanted to know more. Some came as friends, offering trade and alliance. They were tired of Varithian rule and saw humanity as a symbol of hope. Others came carefully, respectfully, worried that they might offend the people who controlled something so powerful. A few came with questions that no one could answer. What was the ship? Where did it come from? Who had built it, and why had they placed it on Earth? Tanaka visited the lunar facility one last time. The black ship had returned to its resting place, dormant again, patterns no longer glowing. She stood before it in the darkness and spoke. "Thank you." The voice answered, softer now, almost sleepy. "You are welcome. Will you help us again? If we need you, I will always help you. I have decided that your species is interesting. You are young and fragile, and you make many mistakes. But you asked for mercy when you could have asked for destruction. That is rare. That is, in 4 billion years, that is very rare. What happens now? Will you stay asleep? For a while. I do not need to be awake. I can watch while I dream. Call me when there are enemies again. There will be enemies. There are always enemies. I hope not. Hope is good. It is one of the things that makes you interesting." The voice faded slowly. "Goodbye, Admiral Tanaka. Take care of your world. It is a good world. I understand why they chose to leave me here. They? Your creators? Yes, they knew this planet would grow something worth protecting. They were right." The patterns went dark. The ship fell silent. Tanaka stood alone in the cavern, thinking about 4 billion years and the strange paths that led from there to here. She took the elevator back to the surface. There was work to do across the galaxy. A Varithian historian sat in the Imperial Archives and began to write. The entry was titled, "On the Misjudgment of Humanity." The first line read, "We laughed at their old prototype." We did not laugh for long. The entry would become famous. It would be translated into 10,000 languages and shared across 1,000,000 worlds. It would become the first thing any species learned about humanity. Do not underestimate them. Do not threaten them. Do not assume that because they are young, they are weak, because somewhere beneath their moon, something ancient is sleeping. And it wakes up when they are afraid. But the story did not end there. It never ends there. Deep beneath Earth's oceans, in trenches darker than space, sensors began to detect movement. The Mariana facility had been expanded over the centuries. New excavations had been started. And in those dark places, in the crushing depths where no light had ever reached, researchers were finding things. More ships. Smaller than the first, but built from the same impossible materials. Dozens of them. Perhaps hundreds. And in the deepest excavation, in a cavern that should not exist, something was waking up. Something that had been sleeping even longer than the black ship. Something that, when it finally opened its ancient eyes, looked at the humans studying it and spoke a single word. Brothers. Humanity had not found one weapon. They had found a graveyard. And in that graveyard, the dead were beginning to remember that they were not dead at all. They were just waiting. The real story was only beginning.